Hello, everyone. We are live. It is a beautiful Saturday morning, and we are here with some amazing filmmakers. We've got a cast member here as well. We are so grateful for everyone who showed up today watching these hilarious movies and just some incredible talent. First off, I just introduced myself. My name is Alita Madeira. I'll be one of the hosts for the OFFA 2021 Virtual Film Festival. This is the 8th year of the festival, my 5th year with the festival, and year number 2 going virtual. And hopefully next year will not be virtual, but fingers crossed, we're hoping everything opens up shortly. So we're here virtually and we are happy to be here. And we're pretty lucky. We get to see so many different faces from all around Canada. All different cities are here today. And thank you so much for being here. I just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors for bringing some of our films here. Couldn't do it without you. Canadian television, Canadian film definitely needs funding. So we are super grateful for that. So thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to our filmmakers who make these amazing masterpieces and share it with all of us. We are grateful for you, and we do this festival to promote your amazing work. Thank you to cast and crew who bring these art pieces alive. We love it. Thank you to all of the board members on the OFFA board who do put in countless hours, sleepless nights to bring this festival alive. Thank you to Wendy. She is just a powerhouse. She's always working around the clock, bringing some amazing films to the festival. Thank you to Tori, who is our tech girl today. She's always doing some amazing work behind the scenes. Thank you, Tori. And then, of course, thank you to our viewers. This is for you. We put this on and we hope that you enjoy all the films and all the local talent and the international talent that we have here at the festival. I just have 2 reminders for you viewers. Be sure to vote for the Audience Choice Award. So you can actually vote for every film that you watch, the short films, the features, the docs, all of them. There's a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being a lower score, 5 being the highest, and you can rate them and there will be an Audience Choice Award at the end. So we'd really appreciate that if you could get involved with the awards. Also, during the Q&A, you can post questions that you have in the chat, and then I can ask our filmmakers some questions. And the same goes for anyone, our guests here today. If you have any questions, feel free. We can have a nice discussion. We can chat with each other and learn more about filmmaking. We've got some viewers who are maybe just starting out in the film industry and would love to pick your brains and just to learn the insides and the schematics of bringing a film to life. So thank you, everyone. That's all my thank yous. Let's introduce our guests. So first up, we have director Nick Rose, who brought us the short film Bankrupt. Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everyone.
We have director Matt Horvat from Charlie, the short film, writer and director. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Next, we have Finley Brown, who is director, one of the screenwriters and producers of the Flexed Arm Hang. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We have director David Clark from Ouroboros, the other short film. Thank you, David, for being here.
Thank you.
And for our feature, we've got Joshua Demers, who is our director, also one of the screenwriters, producers, editors of Quebexit, the hilarious, very funny movie we just got to screen. We have Allison Louder, one of the cast members for this hilarious film. She played the second Lieutenant Suave. I mean, just such a great character. Thank you for bringing that to us. We definitely enjoyed seeing all the funny, interesting parts about being a Canadian. So thanks for being here, Allison.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I think I've introduced everyone. It's a cold, rainy day, so we hope we have lots of guest involvement today. But first off, maybe we'll start with Joshua. Maybe you'd like to go first. Tell us a little bit about Quebexit. It's so hilarious. Maybe you can just give us a bit of background when you decided to make this a film.
like all films, they kind of percolate for a while. So my father's from Quebec. I was born in Alberta. He was in the military. So I kind of, Quebec sovereignty was always this kind of thing that I was obsessed with as a child, because for me, identifying as a Canadian was a very easy blanket term. And so yeah, like the idea kind of was there. And then as you start trying to like dive into it, you realize you can't really tell it by yourself, because anytime you dive into Canada, you're just one tiny, tiny piece of a much larger puzzle. And so that's, you kind of have the rough framework of it, and then you realize you need to collaborate with other voices and perspectives. And so working with the other screenwriters became essential, as well as the cast members, because it became an ensemble. So every cast member had to have sovereignty over their character to make sure that you had all of these perspectives that were respected and autonomous. So it kind of evolved that way, where it just was like, here's an idea, you need to work with people. And then on set, we continued to workshop and reshape it. I think Allison could attest to how sometimes it felt like rehearsal on set. But that's how, and then editing was like the final piece where we all kind of worked together to try to make sure that it kind of cohered into a beautiful mess of incoherence, which is probably the best way to describe Canada.
And there were so many different perspectives and feelings, and I'm sure, Allison, being on set, you probably learned a lot and had different feelings. Did your maybe perspective shift or change at all during learning about the other perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, well, just to Josh's comment about it feeling like a chaotic rehearsal, it felt a lot like improv. I have an improv background, and I know a lot of the rest of the cast do too. And so it was really fun to just bounce spontaneously off of each other. And I think those were the moments with some of the most authenticity, and some of them made the cut into the film. I'll leave you to guess which bits are what, but it's a really cool feeling to just be really in the moment and completely trust whoever is in the scene with you. And a lot of them are several groups of people all together at once, all talking over each other. But because there was that fluidity and that understanding, it just worked. It's kind of amazing.
There was such great chemistry. You all were so different, and I think it accurately represented just how colorful and diverse Canada is. And we are all Canadian, but we all are so different. And I think it's important to remember that. But I know the one thing we share in common is we all live on this planet. And I think that's the part that we need to remember. And we're all trying to divide, but it is nice to remember that we're all the same. We're all just human beings. We have our first audience question, actually. This is from Jay James. Loved Quebexit. How do you manage such a big cast with multiple stories as a director? So kind of what we were already talking about, but maybe you want to add on to that.
I think we spent the most, I think if you're directing, probably the whole job is prioritizing. So you have limited resources, you have limited time, you have to decide what's important. So one of the things we kind of, with producer Shannon Fuster, we decided was important is character driven. So cast is essential. So, and even with Elisa, who will probably a bit more to her chagrin, had to be a little bit more run and gun than I think she wanted to be, but it's like, we have to maximize time for actors to work, and we have to spend all our time picking the right actors. So we spent a lot of time handpicking everyone. Allison to Zav, Zav was my roommate, so he was kind of an easier choice. Working with Gail, working with Nicole, like really handpicking this great group of people and just trusting them, and to the point where every character had sovereignty. So Gail would tell me what Mitos would do, and I couldn't argue because she was Mitos, and that created opportunities in the scene for Allison and Zav, because that affected what decisions they made. So in terms of managing, it was just basically trusting the process that you set up from the beginning, and just trusting the people you're working with.
And that must be a difficult challenge to just have full faith. But I mean, it looks like you had just an amazing cast to work with. And I think they all brought something special to the table. And I think, you having that trust was in a great place, and you produced a wonderful, wonderful film, and we really enjoyed it. Why don't we move on to Nick, you brought us Bankrupt, such a great film. And you know what, I think it speaks to having, maybe a smaller space, a smaller cast, but having to, be resilient and use what you have. Tell us a little bit about making this short film and, using what you had.
Yeah, sure. So it was funny. I remember we were just sitting in the living room and we were like, let's just make a film. But what can we do? It's COVID, can't get actors, can't go out, at least this from our experience, right? And we're like, sorry, there's a fly in my head. We're like, let's just do something at home. And so I contacted Nick, who starred the guy, the main male in the film. He was a buddy of mine, and I said, do you want to do this film? What do you think of the script? And we kind of did up the script really, in a short period of time, and just shot it in our kitchen. So with limited resources, if I showed you guys set pictures of our our lighting setup, it was it's funny, but it worked, right? So
it was great. And I think we've all learned this year of how to use what you have at home.
Yeah.
And, I think filmmakers do it all the time, right? But just really great. And I wasn't expecting it to go there. I mean, watching it, I was like, oh, this is going to be a jail, something, like what's going on? I love the turn that it took. It was really well done.
thank you.
Let's move on to Finley, who brought us the flexed arm hang. We've got an audience question for you.
Okay.
What was your inspiration for this really great film? You are too young to have lived it.
Oh, well, that's easy. And it lets me give credit to a great writer. The inspiration was a short story that I read in the Winnipeg Free Press by an author called Adriano Magnifico, which I adapted the script off of. So, but when I read it, it was set in 1978, which is of course before my time. But I think that it has a universal appeal for my generation. It was the beep test of getting into gym class, and whatever gauntlet they've laid out to test us this year is there, and the kind of pain that a lot of us felt trying to struggle through this in front of all our classmates in the most humiliating way. But ultimately a story of triumph for this young man.
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't have the flexed arm hang in our time, but we had the beep test. Does anyone remember the beep test? That was, I don't know if that was worse than the flexed arm hang. I thought it was worse because it was so embarrassing, and you're like trying to race a beep. Pretty humiliating. Not sure if they still do that, but at least it's not the flexed arm hang. I don't think I would do so well on that. We have a question. Oh, actually, I want to introduce our newest guest, Elisa Iancone. She's the cinematographer for Quebexit. Welcome, Elisa.
Hi, thanks for having me. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. I know it's an early morning for some, but thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Maybe you want to share a little bit about those moments that you were capturing. You were shooting in Pickering for most of the film, right?
Yeah, I think it was Ajax, right, Josh? You're on mute, by the way.
Pickering.
Oh, it was Pickering. Okay, sorry. Yeah, what did you want to know?
You created this space.
Alita?
Yes. Hi. You were in nature, and you were trying to show, the three different perspectives, right? The indigenous land, that it is sacred, and then we're showing, the French side, and then the Canadian side. But you did capture it so warmly, but also there was that war, haze to it. It was just such a great job. Maybe you have some advice for some other filmmakers who are, trying to capture different perspectives.
I think it was just quite nice to have a chance to go through different films with Josh prior to actually going into the shoot, because he had a pretty clear idea on how he wanted framing to happen. He was really into ensemble blocking and stacking of people so that you had lots of actors at the same time in every shot. So most shots will have more than one person in them, even in close-up. And it was also about just trying to keep the geography the orientation right, because we were in a single road and it could be quite easy to get confused as to which side is what. So just keeping consistency of where people were looking at to ensure that people knew which side was what. And yeah, I mean, that was, I think, the biggest challenge, other than obviously the light when you're shooting with so many actors on low budget and you're outdoors all day and we had limited crew. It was hard to keep it consistent, but beyond that, it was just making sure that we could keep the framing right, to keep the storytelling right. So I think it's just about working closely with a director and making sure that you try your best to translate how they view things.
It was it's funny because when one of the reasons I wanted to work with Elisa on this was she has a background as a conflict photographer in war zones. And I think she was like excited by like, oh, I get to make like beautiful art now. And I'm like, well, I really want to rely on your background. Because for me, I thought there's something kind of amusing of someone who's seen, like, I mean, Canada does have a dark history, but in the sense of like the conflict that you actually see tends to be a lot of people talking at each other. So it's like, I thought it was kind of for me, it was amusing having someone who's like been in Egypt when shooting was happening to take that approach to, Pickering and having soldiers argue about the Constitution.
I was just
Josh is
amazed at how many
basically
times the leaves factored in as continuity. It was pretty great. I remember moments of, yeah, but we saw that leaf before. Can we get that leaf out of the way? And I mean, they're trees, they're standing there. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, we have to move some branches every so often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a truck got stuck in a ditch. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
No.
We should all go to that little lonely road at some point and have a drink when this is all over.
Oh my God.
So these are the fun moments that I love sharing. And I think, upcoming filmmakers love to hear these stories and like to know these challenges that are gonna, come up when you're filming a film. We actually have so many audience questions right now. I'm so happy. This is great. Another one for Quebexit. This is from Megan Carey. What was the trickiest part? I mean, we kind of covered some of the struggles, but maybe something really tricky stood out for you?
Probably editing and post, because the shoot was challenging. It was 12 days, so we didn't have a lot of time. But one of the ways we combated that was like we made sure like Elisa and her camera operator worked really fast. We had 2 cameras. We gave the actors a lot of freedom, but then we had a lot of footage that we had to cut together. And as Allison kind of alluded to, we didn't have a continuity person, so we had like just things. So cutting it together was a bit of a challenge, just to make sure that you're telling the story you want to tell, but also making sure that people are not jumping around in space. You're keeping the geography consistent. You're making sure that every cast member has a moment to shine, and you're balancing all the stories. So I think for me, that was probably the biggest challenge. But I think, 12 days in the sun is always
running into darkness and having to use Canadian Tire lights because we did not plan for that.
And I constantly have to apologize for Allison for putting them in army gear in like July heat.
I'm over it.
Like a free sauna moment, right? You just sweat out your toxins.
I think all of us were in the best shape of our lives by the end of that shoot.
Just rip.
Yeah. And fun fact, there was also no, sorry, Josh, I'm just going to out you here, but there was no washing machine. So all of us were wearing all of our sweat all the time. Which,
that was deliberate.
There you go. So just torture the actors. And help them get into character.
What it feels like,
Yeah, but you know what? It actually, I remember by day 2, we were sitting around at lunch, just kind of like airing off and going, you know what? Like, if this is the way it is for real soldiers, like, we may as well just embrace this. This is ridiculous. 12 days in our own sweat versus 12 months on deployment. We can do this. It was an interesting perspective, but there were lots of moments where, you get back to lunch and the first thing you do is just strip, because we could not be in our clothing anymore. People were drying their shirts in the sun and we all got really comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
It felt like theater sometimes.
Didn't have to worry about social
The easy rig could have used a wash too.
What was that, Elisa?
I said the easy rig could have used a wash too.
Oh. We have another audience question. David Clark, let's get you into this conversation. You brought us Ouroboros, you know, the artist with the cell phone army, and an audience would love to know, they loved your short, and what was the inspiration for this? Are you yourself an artist?
I'm actually not an artist. I I can only draw stick people. I'm not very good at painting or anything like that. My main inspiration for it was, it kind of came out of necessity because it was really hard to come up with ideas. It was just me and my friend. That's it. And in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it kind of came out of necessity. And one of the ideas we really talked about was, it's just so hard to focus nowadays with technology, phones, things like that. And so what we wanted to do is, here's this painter who's trying to focus on his art, but he's getting distracted by all these phones, kind of, you know, symbolizing getting distracted with our technology nowadays, and everything's being thrown at us with social media and things like that. So my main inspiration was kind of these distractions getting in the way of, you know, making art in the creative process.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said you're not an artist, but, you know, making a film, that's art in itself. So you are an artist. But, you know, it's so true. And I think everyone learned this year, if you hadn't learned this lesson already, that your phone is a drug, and it can really suck you in if you don't set your own boundaries for it. So I just love the way you represented that the phones are coming to attack, and, you know, we do have the power to turn them off, but it's really, really hard sometimes, isn't it? Next, I'd love to talk to Matt. Matt Horvat, you are the founder and creator of Salt and Sugar, an animation and motion studio based in Toronto. You know, you brought us Charlie, and Charlie, you know, it's based on a true story. And wow, what a real life character. An audience would like to know, how did you differentiate reality from his own fiction when developing the storyline? And what was the research process to do the story justice? So long-ended question, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for the film, I actually followed the story quite closely. I took the ending as a creative liberty. I don't know what happened to him, but basically, I think he was detained at some point. Like the real Charlie was detained and given charges, but I don't know if they were dropped. Like basically the news stories kind of ended after that. So like honestly, probably he got a slap on the wrist, and like, because it's a civil matter, he probably got nothing at all, unfortunately. But yeah, so the process of finding I guess the truth of the story was, I reached out to the guy who the writer of the story itself. He didn't get back to me, but I emailed him again once the film was made, and he went like, "Oh, this is awesome, good job, whatever." But I actually talked to a couple of the real life landlords in the situation, and kind of their experience dealing with him. So that was really good for character development. So like a lot of the lines that he delivers in the film are like real life things that he said. For instance, when he leaves his landlord Bianca a message, that's the email verbatim that he sent to his real life landlord. So like that's all his words. There was actually a bunch of lines that I couldn't fit in just because it didn't make sense to the story. But this guy's the most ridiculous things. Like he threatened that his own personal judge would come after the landlord and stuff like that. So yeah, to answer the question, a decent amount of the film is as real as possible. I think the overall scam he was doing for a longer period of time, and he was doing it in multiple units, but obviously for filming purposes, I can only do one. But yeah, so that was kind of the process of me doing the research behind the story.
And you know, that issue, the landlord tenant issue, it's so broad, so big, and it is such an issue. And I think many have a story to share concerning that. I mean, for myself, I was a landlord right before COVID, and I was in the process of evicting a tenant. And she ended up leaving March the 14th, and the 18th, they stopped the evictions. And I got the 4 days right before, and she actually did leave. But for some, the reality was that some people had nowhere to go. And then what were they to do? And, you know, it's hard to see just one side. You have to see both sides, you know, the landlord and the tenant. But in this case, the landlord was real shady. But, you know, it's a huge issue. And, you know, thank you for bringing it in this light, in a wonderful short. You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
We have another question. We're going to go back to Quebexit for a little bit. This is from Claire Bickley. Do you feel this moment is particularly of the moment right now?
In a lot of, I mean, one of the things that I think the film succeeded for us when we just kind of focused on the specificity of, like, you know, these are 19 characters in a small part of a larger microcosm. So I think there's always a danger to trying to make it bigger, speak for more than it can. I think it's just there were just things that the film was talking about that the country or the territory has been talking about or needing to talk about for a while. But at the same time, I mean, the film as an ensemble, well, I'm really proud of it. It's not a substitute for watching Indigenous-led content or Francophone-led content. It's like you have to kind of go to the people who have those stories and listen to them tell the stories in their own way. So while I'm very proud of the film for kind of like talking about all the different stories that kind of swirl around this one issue, it's also, I think it's just, we're just talking about what's out there. And it's interesting to see that some people are now starting to pay a little bit more attention, but this has always been there, and I don't think we're particularly unique for talking about it.
And you know what, that's exactly right. I think we are in desperate need of hearing these stories that maybe aren't told, or maybe they're told and no one listens. You know, it's such a relevant issue right now. I think so many Canadians are learning the hard history of Canada, and, you know, the not so great past. But I think with films like these, it creates that awareness, and, you know, it brings that light bulb, like, oh, I want to learn a little bit more about that. And we're just so grateful that you created this film, and it shows not just the one side, it shows so many sides, and it's a spectrum. And you know, you just did a great job to illuminate everyone's opinions, and, you know, a little bit of kindness, a little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy for everyone who's involved in this. So you did just an excellent job.
Right. And a little bit of sovereignty for everyone.
Exactly. You know, and it's hard to make a political movie funny, but how funny it was. I mean, the last scene when they all start singing Celine Dion, I mean, I was rolling like, and, you know, they said it earlier, like, what, Celine Dion can't be the only thing that binds us together. And somehow the French and the Canadian Army, that was what bound them together. Really, really great.
I just wish that we had suddenly been in Vegas Golden Knights uniforms during the song now. I feel like that is probably the only thing that would make the film more current. It's just...
And you need the Celine hand, you know? Celine!
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, it's funny. It's not a Celine Dion song. It's a song that's been around for a bit, but it's interesting that we just found it as a choice. It was a song that people know from different artists and naturally kind of seemed to fit for the end.
And it follows you. I mean, I think for about a month at least after we shot, we were always texting each other, guess what song's on in the grocery store? Like every day, sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah, it's a good breakup song, which is probably very Canadian.
Just the music, it's so powerful. You know, even if you don't know the words, you want to get into it, but it was great. Well done. Let's go back to Charlie, the short film. We're getting lots of questions about this. This is from Robert. I love the film, Charlie. What was your favorite part of the filmmaking process?
Favorite part of the filmmaking process? It's always such a loaded question. As a whole, I kind of like, it's funny because like I like being on set obviously, but sometimes I kind of like it when it's all come together in the editing room. But you know, that it's kind of like a private celebration. You're like, oh, this is looking good, but like it's not really a bunch of people surrounding you to enjoyed as well. But so for production, I would say, it'd probably be the end of the day one of shooting. That was when we shot the party scene, and it was just nice because like it was like because you know when you try to do a party scene, especially when you don't have you know like a budget, like a proper budget, you know you're kind of self-financing. Like you never know who's going to show up, and like luckily like 50 people showed up. You know, apparently if you offer free alcohol, people will just show up. So, but you know, it was the end of day one, I think, and like we made the day. It was like 10 hours in, and I was like, okay, like it's happening. Like, okay, this is like we're in it now. Like it's going so far so good. You know, it's you know, I was worried about the party scene not looking good. It ended up looking great. And then it was just kind of like, okay, this is happening one way or another. Like we're in it now. We're in it. It's going well. So that was probably my favorite part. Just like, okay, like it's a thing. It's officially, you know, it's real. You know,
We're here. We're out here.
yeah, exactly.
We have another question from Megan Carey for you. Was it difficult tracking down all the people in real life to get the details for Charlie, or were people happy to finally spill the goods and have their feelings heard?
Oh, people were happy. It was very easy. The only person who I said this earlier, they didn't respond was the journalist. But I mean, journalists are busy. They're not necessarily like that's like it's their story, but it's also they have a bunch of other stories going on. So I'm sure. I mean, he eventually saw the film and was like, "Oh, this is awesome." But no, like the landlords, they spilled the beans instantly. They instant reply, "Let's meet up here. Let's get coffee. I want to tell you all the secrets." So it was pretty easy to get the story out.
Thank you. Let's talk titles. I mean, all of the titles were so interesting. Maybe Nick, we'll start with you with Bankrupt. Was that title always going to be part of it? Was that kind of the seed that started it?
Actually, so funny because the whole initial idea of the film obviously was, you know, when you get to the ending, it's not really about, you know, bankruptcy per se. And when I was editing it, I said to Peter, the writer, I said, we don't have a title. We got to put something in. So because they referenced Bankrupt, like the actual title a few times, we're like, let's just, you know, that sticks. Let's put that there. But we wanted to not make it about the board game, right? So
yeah, I couldn't call it Monopoly, then we'd kind of know what it was.
It would
about.
ruin it.
Yeah. Ruin it. You know, even when he said there's no get out of jail free card, that didn't even clue me in. I was like, yeah, there's no get out of jail free card. That's
we've had people say as soon as they heard that part, like, okay, I kind of had an idea, and then, you know, some people went over their heads. So that was kind of like the little hint in the middle. So
that was great. Matt, maybe you want to share a little bit about coming up with Charlie?
I mean, I wish I had a good story for it. It's just, I had a few other working titles, but like I would throw them around and like in my head, and I was like, you know what? It really is about him, and it's like it's kind of like the, you know, self-centered, you know, character that he is. It's like it really is all about him. So there, yeah, I wish there was more to say about that, but they're just, you know, it's you know, a titular character kind of situation.
No, but it's good for filmmakers to see this and how your brain works and how different brains work and come to a final decision. It looks like we lost Finley, but let's move on to David. Tell us about Ouroboros. I'd love to know the meaning behind that.
Yeah, we really struggled with the title. Sometimes titles can be really hard to make. And so, yeah, we just kept going back and forth. So Ouroboros, that's the symbol that he's painting. It's the snake biting its tail. So I thought that was kind of fitting. And we kind of wanted to keep the title mysterious. So when people watch it, they kind of end up, oh, this is a comedy, but the title kind of has a serious tone to it. But yeah.
It was great. Joshua, let's talk about Quebexit. I love when words are mashed together to bring another word. Was this already a word that you'd heard, or did you come up with this, or?
We had a very lame title, like really just not even worth mentioning. And I think I was, when we were kind of applying through funding, we were working with, I had a chance to have conversations with some old professors from York. And they were talking about how bad the title was that we had. And then I think it just, someone said Quebexit, and that made someone laugh. And then my younger brother was like, no, it's Quebexit. And then it was just very, And it seems a very like we should have just thought of that from the beginning, because it's a very obvious, especially with Brexit and Texit and Albexit and all the exits out there. It seems like a very obvious thing to go for. But yeah, it took us surprisingly a long time to find it.
That was great. All the titles were awesome, and they don't give too much away, but they give you a little bit of a hint of what's going on. And titles are super important. So thank you. We've got another audience question for Nick. Are you a big Monopoly fan?
It's so funny. I always say to everyone in my house, when it's family game night, I'm like, let's play Monopoly. Nobody wants to play Monopoly. It's a long game. So
you gotta invest hours.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't play it enough. I would love to, but so if any of you guys are Monopoly fans, maybe we could set up an online game or something.
There's a game called Monopoly Deal, and it's like the short version of Monopoly, and that is a lot of fun. That's when you don't want to fully commit to the entire thing. You can buy hotels and stuff early on in the game. So
and I think it's the length, and I think it's also there's a lot of infamous stories of fights breaking out over Monopoly. So
yes, that and the game of life. Do I go to school? Yeah. Do I get married? Do I buy a car? All those fun things that board games bring out, right? Don't even get me started on Catan. Catan will start riots in my house.
Haven't tried that one yet.
Oh, you got to try Catan. That's your next film. It's a really good one. That wars will start over Catan. All right. Well, I can open up the floor to anyone. Maybe we have some questions among each other. Any filmmakers or cast that have questions for each other?
I just think Nick has the best setup. I mean, he's doing this Zoom
yes.
thing right. I kind of feel like I want to be on a podcast where you're asking me about my mother and.
So my partner Kelly, and she's in the film. She live streams on Twitch. So this is my desk is on the other side, but it does not look as nice. So this is my go-to Zoom meeting desk.
So profesh. Looks great.
Well, thanks.
So what's next? What's next for everyone? We've got, world is opening up a little bit. Film is opening up a bit more. Anyone want to share what's up next for you?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So I have a feature that's in the second draft. So I'm currently working on that, but I also have 2 shorts that I want to maybe make within the next year. But so far they're all kind of just in pre-production, writing. It's COVID's probably been best for writing because you can't really do anything else unless you have money for COVID compliance and getting everyone tested and that kind of thing. But lately, just a lot of writing for me.
For me, it's been another couple of bilingual roles, that English and French bilingual, I should specify. There's many different ways to be bilingual. But yeah, oddly enough, both were shot during COVID. One's a feature-length film called Scavengers, directed by Samuel Plante. And I have a small role in that. And the other one we just finished wrap is called Tête à Tête, and it is by a French filmmaker named Florence Sobieski, and super small, great team, really fun story about serious subject matter having to do with bisexuality and the larger spectrum of sexuality as a whole, and not really feeling like you can fit in even within the LGBTQIA2S community. So that was really, really fun. And now a whole lot of mystery. Whole lot of mystery. So actor for hire here. Hello.
Love it. Plug yourself. That's good, girl. Do it. Josh, let's talk to you a little bit. We're almost near the end of it, but let's just talk about how funny Quebexit was. She's hunting beaver when she's looking on Tinder. So funny. The card game.
That was Gail. That was Gail.
The card game.
The card game that it happens to be. What are you playing? War. Just so funny, the Celine Dion part, we already talked about that. And then, shit pants, that was amazing. I love that nickname stuck for him so quick. Was it always going to be a comedy? Was it maybe going to be serious with a couple jokes here and there?
I think it was always going to be a comedy, and then just it had to become more serious because I think that was like I said, probably the naivety of me at the beginning is you're trying to, in your, the gem is you're trying to tell a comedy about your country, and then you realize your country doesn't really have a right to be your country. Two, there's a lot of pain there. And so you have to just kind of be honest. And I think that's where like the collaboration really worked. And then when we looked at the editing, it was kind of great because there was like 5 kind of really nice dramatic moments that I think needed to happen. So one was kind of from Gail, where basically, the shootout scene at the beginning was supposed to be funny. And then I did not clue in that, having soldiers yelling at 2 Indigenous women in a vehicle was not funny.
With guns pointed at them, no less.
Yeah, and Gail was very brave and just kind of went there, and we all just was like, okay, that's the scene. And then she's like, yeah, I guess it's not funny. We're like, no, it's not. And I made sure we kept all of it in, and it was a tonal shift. But we also had moments like that where probably one of my other favorite scenes is with Sauvé and Hassan, where basically you have these 2 soldiers who have to kind of go to the limits of what they're willing to do for their country. So one of them willing to die, one of them willing to kill. And yeah, that was another moment where just like, yeah, you kind of have to go there. And we made sure we gave Zav and Allison like space. It was a dance between Elisa, John, Allison, and Zav. And then, you have the Angus moment where basically you kind of see like the comic relief, you kind of see the human face behind it. You have the Susan moment, and it's just like those moments had to be there. So yeah, you can't tell a comedy about Canada without it being a drama. Otherwise you're not being honest.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really liked about the script when I first read it too, and the fact that it didn't shy away from satire. I think that satire is a rarely used critical and yet comedic tool in visual storytelling, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just kind of not in vogue right now, but yeah, it really leapt off the page, and that was definitely one of the things that attracted me to the film.
All right, I have something maybe for Allison if she wanted to share. I remember and this just kind of shows you the collaborative nature. Originally in the script, Sauvé was supposed to be English speaking and could speak French, but speak French as a second language, and a little bit broken at points. And I remember Allison felt very strong that Sauvé needed to be perfectly bilingual. And I think obviously that was the right choice, but I just figured, he'll give Allison a chance to speak to that.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, and I was really happy that you were open to that because, well, first of all, I am fluent in English and French. I grew up, born and raised in Montreal, so like I'm Quebecoise, and it wouldn't have felt right to me to like put on a fake accent when that just isn't how I speak. But yeah, more importantly, I thought that, it was time to kind of shatter the illusion that there aren't people who are fluently bilingual, and not just in English and French, obviously. I mean, Gail's character, Mitos, she is perfectly fluent in Cree. And so Mitos speaks Cree. The script is trilingual, and so just different linguistic representations and having the fluidity of that with more than one language, I think was really, really refreshing and really important.
Yeah, we got a Polish and Punjabi swear word in there too.
Yeah, we got a couple of those in there for sure. It's awesome. Yeah, we all were kind of like exchanging different words, and it was really fun.
And that is one of the beautiful parts of being Canadian, that there are so many cultures, languages, religions, beliefs, and feelings. And, as Canadians, we just hope that everyone respects them and has compassion and empathy for beliefs that are different than yours. And that's okay. And that's what makes Canada so great. I just want to take this time to thank everyone who came out today. Thank you to our viewers. And of course, thank you to our guests. We really, really appreciate you guys coming here and logging on and chatting with us about your films. They were so great. I wish you guys the most success with these films. I hope everyone gets a chance to see them. Any of you viewers who are watching, make sure you share these films and tell everyone, you got to watch some great Canadian films. So thank you everyone who came out today. Don't forget to vote for the Audience Choice Award. You can vote from 1 to 5. It's the bottom of your viewing on Eventive. So thanks again. That's a wrap for today. And we really appreciate you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.